Good morning. This is the BLAINESWORLD podcast that can be heard each week on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. You can also find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and other places as well as the website, which is www.blainesworld.net. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week, we focus on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my guest of this morning, and she is Amanda Simons, SkillSet Program Coordinator at UNCA STEAM Studio. And Amanda, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends who are watching this. So if you're watching this, you can see Amanda. If you're listening, you'll be able to hear her. Amanda Simons is a visual artist, writer, educator, and safety advocate. That's some combination. I like how you got the safety in that as well. And has been teaching students ages 5 to 85 for over 15 years. She specializes in fields such as woodworking, metal fabrication and casting, and digital tools. She holds dual degrees in English and painting from the University of Michigan Flint, as well as dual advanced degrees in interdisciplinary studio art and visual and critical studies from California College of the Arts. And the question I always ask Amanda the first time I meet somebody or interview somebody is, as a kid, you grew up where?
I grew up where? I grew up 10 miles north of Flint, Michigan, in a town called Genesee, Michigan.
Okay. And so when you were growing up outside of Flint, Michigan, did you always know you wanted to be an arts educator?
No, I knew I wanted to be a teacher as a kid, you sort of go through I definitely want to be an astronaut. I definitely want to be a professional basketball player. And then you get farther into your elementary or middle school years and you kind of settle in. I think for me anyway, I settled into, I definitely want to teach people how to do things. Growing up, I thought I was going to go into music education, to be honest. I was a band nerd. I was in marching band, concert band, jazz bands, was teaching myself all sorts of instruments.
What instrument did you play?
I played clarinet and then guitar and then bass and then piano and then the violin.
Okay.
So I was gradually going through all of these instruments, but
do you still play them?
Once in a while. I have a few behind me.
Okay.
More just casually for myself, not for other people at this point in my life.
And so that was some combination. So you started out in music background. How did you get into English then?
This is a really good question. I love that you're asking this. I got into English because growing up, I had a hard time with reading comprehension. It was difficult for me to read fiction books or stories and understand what I just read. And so that was one of the things that challenged me growing up. And somewhere along the way, somebody told me, if you're bad at something, practice at it.
Right.
And so in college, I just kept practicing at it until I had an English degree also.
Is that still the case? Is your comprehension still tough for you at times?
I feel like I'm a little bit slow of a reader, but I've developed some strategies and I don't read fiction books anymore. I've found that I can read nonfiction much easier and understand nonfiction much easier than I can made up stories.
Well, it's true too, because I know I took a couple of speed reading courses, and my favorite one was I took a speed reading course and I read War and Peace. You'll like this fiction in an hour.
What?
I can. No, it's true. I can tell you it's about Russia. So
no, I think that's all I can tell you is about Russia too.
No, but that's what you can do, right? And seriously here, in terms of speed reading, with nonfiction, it's much easier. You read the beginning and then the last paragraph is written differently, so you can pick it up quickly.
Yeah.
So you then picked up your comprehension and whatnot, but then what made you want to become an English teacher?
I sort of fell into teaching English. I've taught a couple of English classes at the higher ed level. I taught at San Francisco Art Institute, a research-based class, and also an English 100 level, second year freshman English. I think what I enjoy about teaching English is finding the connection between the visual world and the written world. because I have a really like clear, quick understanding of what's going around, like what's going on visually, and I can deconstruct visual images really quick and like look at something and know how it's put together fairly quickly. And I think that's a different skill than like stringing together something in a line. And so I'm fascinated with that gap between those two ways of thinking or understanding the world. And I like meeting other people who also have that struggle and sort of helping them through, teaching them easier ways to um, write an essay or understand what they're reading or do research.
Well, now just get off the subject a little bit. The whole thing, and it's scary about writing essays, is going to be changing now with all this artificial intelligence stuff.
It's true.
And
yeah,
I think I may have told you I was a teacher most of my adult life, and I'm glad I'm not, because it's going to change the whole nature, of teaching.
Yes.
So people, I guess we'll have to go back to people have to write essays in front of you, as opposed to taking it
It's
home.
true. Yeah, and actually something along the same line, I was talking to a colleague recently. We were talking about how AI is going to change how we develop curriculum as teachers. Because we had to think of that on our own before, but now we can just plug it into some other database and it can spit out some lesson plans for us.
Well, no, isn't that incredible? It's just I went to something this weekend and I wrote a poem, in 3 seconds. It was a good poem. So life is changing, but now talk about changing. So I got a very interesting background. You have music background, and you got into teaching English. How arts come into the whole play?
English and art sort of developed simultaneously in undergrad. When let's see, before I went to college, in high school, I discovered that I was a really good painter. I got into acrylic painting and was doing murals and doing like portraiture for people, little like painted commissions and things. And it was something that I was really good at and interested in having more formal training in and learning more about. So as I was studying English in college, I was also studying art. I was taking art history courses. I was taking painting classes. Because it was a thing I was good at. It wasn't challenging like taking the English classes was. It was something that was almost second nature, and it was fun. So I just kept doing it.
And so to give it a shout out then, is there anybody then, either high school or college, that kind of inspired you to go in this direction?
Oh yeah, one of my painting professors at U of M Flint, his name is Mike Sevick. I took so many classes with Mike and admired him because it seemed like he had the same passion for painting. I was painting figures a lot, and he was also doing that. It seemed like he had the same passion for painting that I had, and through my 5 years in college, he was sort of like a second dad to me, just because I saw him so many times and took so many classes with him. So
I had the same thing in college. Yeah, I'm saying if he's listening, or hopefully we'll send him a copy of this. Oh, is that cool though? So I think it's really nice that you did that, where life is influenced by different people. So he was an art educator?
Yeah, he was one of my college professors. He taught the painting classes at the college that I went to mostly.
And so how do you tie the whole thing then into the fact that you had this kind of interesting degree, English and arts and musical background too? When did you decide you wanted to be a teacher?
Well, so when you get an art degree at the undergraduate level, there aren't many options that are provided to you. It's like, well, what can you do with that? You could do anything with it. If you want, if you want to make money, you got to go into teaching. So you have to get your graduate degree so that you're qualified to teach at the college level, because that's the meal ticket, right? That's the one job that you're going to be able to do what you want to do and teach and continue to make your art as part of your profession. So it was one of the only options that was provided to me as a college kid.
And so you got, what is it, an MFA? Do you have
I got an MFA and an MA. So in the
Okay.
same way that I did 2 degrees undergrad, I did 2 degrees in grad.
And so when did you start teaching?
Oh, geez. I think my first official teaching gig, I was right out of high school. I taught at the art camp that I went to as a high schooler. They had me come back the next year. So I was teaching painting.
So that must have been
Um,
fun, wasn't it?
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And it was also challenging because I was so close in age to the kids. So people often confused me for a camper, rightfully so. Um, so it was fun and hard because I think um, as much as I hate to say this out loud, with age comes credibility sometimes,
Well, that you
I
can't do
suppose.
it, but that's why years ago I grew a mustache. Just same
Yeah.
reason. I was teaching high
Yeah.
school, and I was a couple of years older than my students, and I said, "Wow, that wasn't so good." So,
Yeah.
but that option I don't think is available to you. So, anyway, so let me ask you a question. It's maybe a naive question, but especially teaching younger kids, and you still do teach younger kids.
Uh-huh.
Um, is everybody? Are there some people who can't draw or paint, or can anybody learn?
Oh, that's a great question. I think with younger kids, like if we were to look at this through a developmental
Right.
lens, anybody, I would say below the age of 12 sort of draws with the same skill level. You know, you're approximating what you're looking at, maybe making shapes, making something that looks like a symbol of a cat, looks like the symbol of a tree. And then when you hit that like 11, 12, 13 years old, you either make that jump to I can look at a thing and I can copy it, or you don't. And so I think it's something that can be taught, but the farther you get away from that developmental milestone, I think the harder it is in some ways. So I think, if I was sitting down with a 65-year-old who wanted to learn how to draw, we can get there. It just might take a little bit longer.
Do some people have, I guess, if you will, kind of a born gift for this as opposed to other people?
I think so. I think so. I think it the trick around drawing is that you're not learning how to draw, you're learning how to see. You're
Interesting.
learning how to like connect what your eyes are doing to the fine motor skills in your hand. So I think some people are like the way they're wired, it just lets them do that easier. And some people have to work at it because their hand-eye coordination is different.
Because I recall having a very traumatic experience as a kid that I
Oh, really?
remember maybe like 5 or 6 years old. I loved to draw and paint, and it was, I'm trying to think what age it was, but I think at one time my mother had like 5 refrigerators, just put up all my art, right? And then I got into some class on art. I think first time I had an art teacher. And I recall, I really do, that teacher kind of laughed at what I was doing. I don't think I ever picked up a crayon afterwards.
Oh,
But that can happen though, right? That a
yeah.
teacher can have an
Yeah.
influence. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, yeah, if somebody in power, a teacher laughs at you, I mean, yeah, that's a hard thing to
Well,
get over sometimes.
but as a teacher, how do you deal with that? In other words, you're working all different ages, but when you see something, I guess it's really good, excites you. But do you see some things that aren't so good?
Yes. And in the moment, I'm not going to say that. In the moment, like the thing that you're making that the person who's making it is so excited about, I'm going to mirror that excitement and I'm going to amp it up a little bit. I think that's the role of a good teacher, is to keep that excitement going and not to be like, oh, Blaine, you could have done better. I see more potential in you. It's like, no, 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 you're doing great with what you're doing right now. You're doing great. Let's keep going.
Well, give some advice, if you would, Amanda, to any parents who are watching this too. And
Oh,
what's the rule of thumb? I remember reading this once, that you should never, when you see artwork from a young child or something, you should never tell them what it is or that you liked it, or you should let them express. How do you express yourself in terms of when you see an artwork from a younger child?
this is such a good question because when we look at when we look at kid drawings through our adult eyes, we're
Right,
seeing something different. We're not necessarily seeing the symbols that the kids are infusing into that drawing. It might mean something different to that child.
right.
So what you just said is the answer. You have to ask them. You have to say, tell me about this. What is it? Um, Tell me about this section of it. Why did you put blue down there? How are you feeling when you make this? Right? Just like questions of curiosity instead of assigning a value to it.
And one last question, if I can, in terms of
Yeah.
before we talk about, you work at UNCA, but in terms of you're working with a child, and I guess the whole thing what you're saying, you want to encourage the child as best you can, and to want them to do more. But here was the question: I had another problem as a child, and still do, that I'm colorblind.
Oh,
I've never asked this of an artist before. Can artists be colorblind?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna see the world totally differently than how I would. And that's fascinating to me. I would love to look through your eyes as a colorblind person and just see what you're seeing, because you might be able to pick up on things that I wouldn't be able to see as someone who can see red and green as different.
Have you ever worked with any colorblind artists?
I actually haven't. Now that
Yeah.
I think about it, I don't, no one has said to me I am
Said you.
colorblind before. So maybe.
Fast forward, Amanda, if you would then. So you went to undergraduate, you got your degree, you started teaching. How'd you wind up at UNCA?
Um, I never thought in a million years that I would be living in North Carolina, like in the vast, wide range of possibilities of where my life could go. I went from Michigan to California for graduate school, lived in California for almost 10 years. And I was living in the Bay Area, and the housing and cost of living situation in there is out of control. It was out of control right before I moved in 2019. Artists were just being priced out of our housing situations. And I think the other layer to that is the climate started changing in the Bay Area, and we suddenly had a new season, which was wildfire season.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So when I came to North Carolina, I already had a trunk full of N95 masks before anybody knew what that meant, before anyone knew what that meant, because the wildfire smoke where I was living, when that would start, you couldn't breathe outside. So we were walking around with masks on 4 years ago. So I started looking for a new job. I started looking for a different place to live. My partner has family in Florida, and my family's in Michigan. So we were looking for something that was in between. And ta-da, North Carolina's right in between those two locations. And I applied for a job at Penland School of Craft, which is a couple counties over from Asheville, and started that position about 6 months before the pandemic started. And it was a super high up, fancy position where they were paying for my housing, they were providing me food. And then the pandemic happened, and we had to cancel classes, and everything changed. My job completely changed. So I started looking for somewhere else to be, just because it wasn't the thing that I thought I was moving out here for. And we ended up in Asheville almost by accident, because it was the biggest city that was nearby Penland, which is about a 60-minute drive. So we moved to Asheville with no plan. And I ended up at UNCA because somebody told me about the studio and about the programming, and said, you should email the director, Sarah. And so I emailed Sarah and I said, hi, here's who I am. Here's the places that I've worked. I'm an expert in the sort of programming that you're doing. Do you need another person to work for you? And she said, come in for a tour. I'll give you a tour of the studio. Have you ever been here? And I said, nope. Cool, let's have a tour. And I went in for the tour, and they offered me a position.
Boy, so you were, wow, were you at the right place at the right time?
As I was at the right place at the right time. They were starting up after school programming, and they needed another instructor. And I was there and ready to go.
And talk a little bit about then the program you're involved. So I see the T-shirt and it's STEAM. And what does STEAM stand for?
STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Or in this case, it could also stand for Asheville. This is the UNCA logo. Right. So STEAM is an acronym that is sort of floating around that's related to STEM education, which is
right. That I'm familiar with. Yeah.
All of that without the art. Right. STEAM incorporates the art because artists can provide a different perspective to all of these like science, tech, sort of logical ways of thinking. There's a different view that can come in when you start to add the arts. So STEAM Studio is a studio that's affiliated with UNC Asheville. We're a 12,000 square foot warehouse off of Riverside Drive. And we basically, we have three functions, really. We could boil it down to three things. We host the UNCA college classes. So sculpture classes meet there. We have some engineering and senior design classes that meet at the warehouse to use our tools. Professors teach curriculum there. So that's the first thing we do. The second thing we do is partner with local artists and businesses who maybe need, we have a lot of digital tools that other places don't have. And sometimes artists and businesses come to us and they say, can you cut out these copper butterflies or this engraved piece of granite, or just like specialized digital tools that we have access to, that we provide this service. And then sometimes artists come to us and they say, I have a concept and I like need access to tools, but also maybe this would be a good class for UNCA students to teach. Is there a way that we can collaborate? So we've had a number of organizations or artists come in and do that and collaborate with us. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is we do community outreach classes. So that's what SkillSet is. SkillSet is the community outreach program that I manage. We do after school classes on site for kids as young as 8, old as 18. We do summer camp, same age range. And then we also partner with local organizations and schools to help either teach classes or come in and provide some sort of service or some sort of curriculum to folks who are in need. So for example, there's a school around the corner from us, Hanger Hall School for Girls.
I know it.
We go there on Wednesdays and build with the kids. We've also traveled as far out as Arkansas. We partnered with an organization in Arkansas that teaches kids in the Mississippi Delta design skills. They're out in the middle of nowhere, and we went in and brought tools with us and taught them how to make wooden benches that they were able to take home at the end of the curriculum. So we do a whole bunch of stuff through SkillSet.
By the way, you mentioned kind of a neat idea for anybody who's listening or watching this, and that has to do with if somebody is watching the show and they have an idea for either a course or some other thing they'd like to do, they can contact you, or how do they get into the hopper?
Yeah, they can either contact me through the SkillSet website, which is skillset.tools, www.skillset.tools. You can go on there. There's a place where you can submit an inquiry and it'll come right to me. You can also just Google UNCA STEAM Studio and you can reach out to STEAM Studio directly. Either funnel is fine because there's only 3 of us on staff. So if it didn't go to the right place, that's fine. We can talk to each other.
So I was going to ask you, so there are 3 full-time folks on staff, and
Yeah,
you hire other folks as well?
Yeah, so we have 3 full-time people. It's me. There's a studio technician who works at the studio. Studio technicians are folks who work with the teachers who are teaching in shop spaces and then also help maintain the equipment. So we have a full metal shop, a full wood shop. Machines break all the time. Technicians help make sure everything's up and running and ready to go. And then we have a director, Sarah Sanders, who oversees both of us and all the instructors. We have a bunch of instructors that both work through the SkillSet program that we hire for after school or summer camp. We also have student workers that are students at UNCA that want experience-based learning opportunities, and they work for us at the studio helping out.
But same token, so if anybody would be interested in coming on board to be an instructor, or back to when you taught years ago young children, how do they get into the process?
Yeah, they should reach out to me through the SkillSet website if someone's interested in teaching, and then we can look at upcoming programming and see where they might fit. The other way to do it is to propose something to us, right? If we have a local instructor who is really into graphic design and has a really great idea for an after-school class or for a summer camp, tell us, because the answer is probably definitely maybe. Let's talk about it. And the maybe probably turns into a yes.
Well, what's cool about this, it's almost like that's why I'm so glad you're on show now, because it's kind of like a cool secret that still a lot of people don't know about,
It's true.
Like I've been here for a while, and I never, this whole facility and, we're doing all this cool stuff. And let's talk about some of the cool stuff you were telling me off the air, that people come take classes and they learn different things. They don't have to be going for a degree, right? You have students who are degree students, but you work with the community as well?
Yes. SkillSet is mostly for community members. So if that means that you're, 55 and you work at a dentist office and you're just interested in welding, and you don't want a college degree, that's totally fine. You can come take a weekend class with us. They're 1-day afternoons where we'll teach you how to weld, or we'll teach you the woodshop equipment, and you walk away with a cool built object that you made in an afternoon yourself.
Right. And talk a little bit about that too. You were saying also you work with children as well. And maybe I'll put you on the spot a little bit if I can ask you to show some of the examples of some of the things that kids do.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Let me cue this up real quick.
So these are just individual classes they take?
Yeah. So the adults right now, our format is that we, sorry, just a second here. Our format is that we have 1-day workshops that folks can come in and just take something in an afternoon. With the kids, it's more extended. We have after school programs that run 10 weeks, meet once a week for a couple hours. And then we have summer camps that are basically a 40-hour work week. They're 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday.
Do you teach in those also?
Mm-hmm. Yep, sure do.
Okay.
I'll be teaching all summer long.
Okay, good. So
cool. Let me share my screen here, and I can show you some of the images of the kids here.
Great. Oh wow, very cool. So so they're actually getting to use this equipment too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's a studio that's designed for adults, but here they are, as young as 8, coming in and using the actual tools that we teach the adults with as well.
And it's funny because I never had this as a kid. I had a shop class, and you made a keychain holder. That was about it. So this is how cool is this? They build the guitar.
Oh yeah. So this is a summer camp that we do almost every summer, where the kids don't have to have a music background.
Right.
They just have to have an interest in electronics and design and sound. And
by the way, if you listen, I should just mention, if folks are just listening to the podcast, Amanda's just showing some of the cool pictures of students at work at some of these workshops. And that, I have to believe, is one of the most popular things that can you imagine, build a custom electric, that's the name of the course, build a custom electric guitar summer camp.
Yes.
That must be very popular, is it?
It is very popular. Yeah, we offer it every summer, and in the course of a week, you can walk in Monday and not know anything about guitars, and on Friday you're going home with a guitar that works. Do they
have a concert afterward or something like that? That is so cool.
We would have to have like another week of summer camp. There would have to be like a second week where we teach them how to play, and then we do a concert at the end.
By the way, food for thought, and I'm serious about this. Keep that in mind. Amanda, I think that'd be a winner, don't you?
I mean, I think so too. I think this would be a cool opportunity.
You bring in, and I'll tell you where I get the idea from. You bring in second week music folks, where they could teach the course. Because I took a course at UNCA through Ollie. Are you familiar with Ollie?
Yes. Yeah.
And I took a course, same kind of thing. It was a stand-up comedy class, and so the graduation we had to perform. So I could see this. I think the kids would go crazy.
Yeah, I think so too.
Food for thought. Okay. So I cut you off. I'm sorry. You just showed me some other slides.
That's okay. welding is always very popular because who doesn't love fire and sparks and wearing silly equipment?
What do they leave with when they take the welding thing? What do they leave with?
It depends, because we do intro to welding summer camps where the kids have no idea what welding is, and maybe they're making like little lamps or I don't know, tiny little sculptures. And then we also host classes for more advanced kids who have taken multiple welding classes with us. Last year they made like some side tables that were steel framed and then had wooden tops, and then they could decorate them. They could make like little butterflies out of metal or whatever and weld it to the side and to customize it. So it's really a range of things with the welding camp. And our instructor is fantastic. Darcy, hi, if you're listening to this. Darcy she's a graduate of the UNCA sculpture program of the art department. And we just didn't let her leave. She just kept coming back to teach classes. She's
And
great.
the phenomenal thing about this also is that these kids, if you will, or whoever's taking the courses, are doing it just because they want to. And I love it. There are no grades, there are no
Yes.
they don't have to do it. They're doing it because they want to be. So they probably love it.
Yeah, there's a different investment level
Right.
when you know you're not being evaluated.
So if you would, in the remaining time, fast forward a little bit, show me some of the stuff that the adults learn or take if you can.
Okay, yeah, let me scroll back up here.
That'd be great.
We've done a ton of different adult classes.
Oh, I love that. Tool literacy. What a great class.
Yeah, tool literacy. So that's really what we're teaching. It might be disguised as making a birdhouse or making a wooden bench, but we're really just teaching you how to make things safely using power tools. So this shot, we're seeing a birdhouse building class. We also do welding for adults. So this on the right here, this is Darcy with a couple of adult learners.
And you mentioned the tool literacy class. I'm thinking to myself, boy, I never learned that. Nobody ever taught me that. My dad wasn't into it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we do with all of these classes is curiosity based. So even if we don't plan on teaching one of the tools and you see something on the shelf and you have a question about it, we're going to talk your ear off with all the information about what that tool does and how you can use it. This is a collapsible chair class. We've done this with both adults and kids. Yeah, it's a really great project. These are just some general shots. We did a picture frame making class, wooden kitchen utensils. So Diane here is making a spatula. This is a Build-A-Bench. I've taught this actually has a really good story attached to it. I've taught this class a number of times for adults and also for kids, both in after school and with our offsite programming. This is a bench that's made out of one piece of pine that's modeled after a bench that I inherited from my grandma when she passed.
Right.
And the bench has traveled with me from Michigan to California to North Carolina. And it's just this like silly little thing. But now I get to teach people over and over again how to make their own heirloom, basically.
Must be very rewarding. I'm just looking at these and the enthusiasm I'm seeing it from you and the students.
Yeah.
To walk away having no skill and then to walk away at least with something, very exciting.
Yeah, it is very exciting.
Talk about the age range for adults. You mentioned it before, but what's the typical age range of people taking courses?
We'll take anybody 18 and up. We have seemed to have settled into this demographic of folks that are like 55 and up. And I don't quite know what that's about, but I have some theories. I think one of the theories that I have is maybe this older generation didn't have access to tools in the same way that my generation does. And they weren't, especially the women in the classes, they weren't taught how to use power tools because it wasn't something that was for them.
Right, exactly.
And so now we see them circling back and saying, oh, there's a class. Yeah, I definitely want to take this class and learn all about this thing that I never got to learn about.
Anecdotally, do you hear stories afterwards from people who took the courses or learned how to use power tools, and then you've unleashed something on the world that they then keep going at it?
Yeah, a lot of these folks in these pictures are repeat class takers who they came in curious about one thing and just can't stop taking the woodworking or welding classes because it's an entirely new world that they didn't know they had access to before.
I love it. Beautiful. Amanda, in the remaining time, you were telling me also off the air that I know you're going to have an event in May, I think you said. It's going to be a fundraising event, or it's just an event open to the public?
Yeah, we are hosting a fundraiser, and actually I'm going to pull up a image of this one also.
If you would, please.
Yes, I would love to.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Great. Okay. So we started doing an annual fundraiser in May every year, and this fundraiser is incredibly important because 50%, roughly 50% of our families who are sending their kids to camp or after school receive financial assistance. And this is a model where we basically ask the families, how much can you pay us?
Lovely.
And then we let them pay that amount. We're not asking for your tax returns. We're not asking for any proof. We're just asking what you can contribute. So about 50% of our families are attending based on that model. And this is really just a cost that we eat. We have to recoup it somehow. And the fundraiser is one of the ways that we can do that. So what we're trying to do is raise approximately $8,000. And what that'll do is cover a quarter of our costs for summer. So this is a great event if you're not familiar with the STEAM Studio and want to come in and have a tour and check out what we do. It's a great way to support the programming and also be entertained by seeing this like really cool state-of-the-art building that we're occupying.
Is this now the first time you've done this fundraiser?
This is our second year. We did it last year. Yep. And we're decided to do it again this year.
Okay. And again, Amanda, once again, if folks want to find out more about like all the cool stuff you're doing, first of all, on the fundraiser, go to the website, same thing too, or what's the best way to find out information?
Yeah, you can go to the website. This fundraiser flyer is so brand new that I just saved it this afternoon, so it's not quite up on the website yet, but give me till the end of the week. Our website is www.skillset.tools. It'll be on the website. We'll also have it on our Instagram, which is SkillSet Program. You can also find us on Facebook. We're SkillSet Program on Facebook. And you can, for the fundraiser, we're selling the tickets through Eventbrite. So if you have an Eventbrite account, you can also just search SkillSet and we'll pop up.
And if you would, you have my email address. Please send me that as well, because I have a blog and I'll put it out there as well. But this is so cool. So I'd like to thank you, Amanda Simons, for being my guest this BLAINESWORLD podcast. I'd also like to thank my producer, Cappy Tassetti, and just whatever you're doing, continue it, because it's really cool. You know, it's just I had so much fun with this. So thank you very much. And I think I'm going to probably wind up cutting you off here, but hopefully I'll see you, if not on May 18th. Was that the date?
May 18th. Yeah, May 18th.
Or someday we'll bop into each other, because I got to see the studio. So that's
I mean, anytime. Let me know when you want to come by and I'll give you a tour.
Okay, really impressed. Thanks an awful lot for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Blade.
You be well. Thanks.
Thanks.